He mocked the girl just to laugh at her. But what she did with the tractor left everyone speechless. Richard Johnson crossed his arms and let out a mocking laugh that echoed through the auto shop. In front of him stood his niece Emily, just 13 years old, staring determinedly at the old John Deere tractor with fire in her brown eyes. "Go ahead then, little lady," said Richard, adjusting his worn-out cap. "Let's see you get that. Tractor running, I bet $50 you can't even start it." The shop was packed that Saturday afternoon. At least 15 men had stopped what they were doing to watch the scene. Everyone knew Richard as the best tractor mechanic in Springfield, and now he was publicly challenging a girl who could barely reach the pedals. Emily took a deep breath. Her small hands trembled slightly, not from fear, but from anger. Anger at being underestimated, just for being a girl. Anger at hearing laughter every time she showed interest in her grandfather's farm equipment. "I accept the challenge, Uncle," she replied, her steady voice cutting through the air thick with diesel fumes and grease. More laughter erupted around her. Hank, the shop's oldest assistant, shook his head. "Richard, this ain't right. The girl's gonna hurt herself." "Let her try," Richard shot back, his smirk still plastered on his face. "It'll be a good lesson. A girl's place is in the kitchen, not tinkering with heavy machinery." Emily felt her blood boil. Those words hit her like arrows, but she wouldn't show weakness. Not here. Not in front of all these men who thought she couldn't do it. Now, dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. It really helps us newcomers out. Now back to the story. The girl stepped up to the tractor. It was a massive machine. With huge tires and sun-faded red paint, the hood was open, revealing a complex engine that would intimidate any amateur. "She doesn't even know where to start," someone muttered from the back of the shop. Emily examined the engine carefully. Her eyes traced every component, every hose, every connection. She'd spent years watching her grandfather work on these machines, soaking up knowledge like a sponge, even when everyone told her she should be playing with dolls. "The problem's in the ignition system," she said suddenly, her voice cutting through the murmurs. Richard raised an eyebrow, surprised. "Oh, really? And how would a 13-year-old girl know that?" "Because I have eyes and ears, Uncle. And because Grandpa taught me, even when you said it was a waste of time." The mood in the shop shifted subtly. Some of the men exchanged uneasy glances. Old Frank, Emily's grandfather and Richard's father, had been a legend among local mechanics. Before retiring, Emily grabbed a screwdriver and got to work. Her movements were precise, methodical. She checked the spark plug wires, tested the ignition coil, adjusted the distributor. "Look at that. She even knows how to hold the tools," Richard taunted. But his voice lacked its earlier confidence. 20 minutes passed. The afternoon sun streamed through the shop's dusty windows, casting beams of light where dust particles danced. Sweat trickled down Emily's forehead, but she didn't stop. "Enough, girl," Richard finally said. "You've made your point. You know a little, but getting it running is another story." "I'm not done yet," Emily replied without looking up from the engine. Then she spotted it, a tiny, almost invisible wire disconnected behind the fuel pump. Her eyes narrowed. That wasn't natural wear and tear. Someone had done it on purpose. She glanced at her uncle. Richard quickly looked away, but not fast. Enough. In that moment, Emily understood everything. He had sabotaged the tractor to ensure it wouldn't start. The anger she felt was overwhelming, but she swallowed it. She wouldn't give him the satisfaction of seeing her give up or complain. Silently, she reconnected the wire and continued her adjustments. "You're wasting your time, Emily," Richard insisted, now visibly nervous. "That tractor hasn't started. In weeks, not even I could get it running." "Liar," Emily whispered to herself. "You didn't want it to work." She finished the adjustments and climbed down from the tractor. She walked over to the operator's seat and struggled to climb up. Her feet barely reached the pedals, and she had to stretch to reach the ignition key. "Careful, girl," Hank shouted, genuinely concerned. Emily turned the key. The engine sputtered once, twice, but didn't start. The laughter started up again around her. "I told you," Richard said, relief clear in his voice. "Now, get down." "Before you—" Emily turned the key again. This time she pressed lightly on the accelerator as she turned it, a technique she'd seen her grandfather use on stubborn tractors. The engine coughed, sputtered, and then roared to life. The powerful sound of the diesel engine filled the auto shop, completely drowning out the voices. Emily adjusted the throttle, and the engine settled into a steady, healthy purr. The silence that followed was deafening. All the men in the shop stared at the girl with expressions ranging from shock to admiration. Richard had completely lost his arrogant demeanor. His face was pale, his mouth slightly open. Emily turned off the engine and calmly climbed down from the tractor. She walked over to her uncle and held out her hand. $50, please. Richard didn't move. His eyes were fixed on the tractor, as if he couldn't believe what had happened. How did you... Grandpa taught me, Emily said simply. He always said machines don't care if the person fixing them wears a skirt or pants. They just want someone who understands them. Hank was the first to break the silence. Good Lord above, the girl did what none of us could. One by one, the men began to approach. Some clapped, others shook their heads in admiration. But Richard remained frozen, his world turned upside down. You reconnected the wire, he finally said, his voice barely a whisper. Yes, Emily confirmed, just like you disconnected it. The stares turned to Richard. The respect he commanded in the shop began to crack like glass under pressure. Richard, you sabotaged the tractor, Hank asked, incredulous. I just wanted, Richard stammered, searching for words that wouldn't come. You wanted to humiliate me, Emily finished. You wanted to prove girls aren't cut out for this, but you know what Grandpa taught me? The problem is never in the hands holding the tools. It's in the closed mind of the one judging those hands. Mrs. Betty, Hank's wife, had arrived to pick up her husband and witnessed the final moments of the scene. This girl is right, she said, stepping into the shop. How many of us could have been working here if it weren't for men like you, Richard, saying we aren't capable? Richard looked around. The faces that had once laughed with him now stared at him in disapproval. He'd been exposed, not just as someone who underestimated a child, but as someone willing to cheat to prove a petty point. Emily, he began, but his niece cut him off. I don't want your apologies, Uncle. I want my $50, and I want one more thing. What? I want to work here on Saturday afternoons as a paid apprentice. The audacity of the request left everyone speechless. A 13-year-old girl asking to be an apprentice in an auto shop. That was unheard of in Springfield. That's impossible, Richard said automatically. Your parents would never allow it, and even if they did, it's dangerous, it's dirty, it's what I love doing, Emily interrupted. And I just proved I'm capable. The silence stretched again. Richard looked at the faces around him. Hank nodded slightly. The other mechanics did the same. Even Bob Wilson, the most conservative of them all, muttered something about giving the girl a chance. My dad's gonna kill me, Richard murmured. No, he won't, said Emily. Grandpa will be proud. He always wanted someone in the family to carry on his legacy. You chose to manage, not get your hands dirty. I'm choosing differently. Richard wiped his sweaty, embarrassed face. How had it come to this? How had a 13-year-old girl turned his life upside down in less than an hour? One afternoon a week, he finally said. Saturdays from 2 to 5, junior apprentice pay. And you follow all safety rules, no exceptions. 3 afternoons, Emily counted. Wednesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays. And I want to learn from Hank, not you. Hank nearly choked on his own spit. Me? But You're the best mechanic here after my grandpa, Emily said. Everyone knows that, even Uncle Richard knows, even if he pretends not to. The blunt truth hung in the air. Richard owned the shop, but Hank was the artist. He was the one customers sought when the problem was truly tough. You're getting way too bold, Richard grumbled, but the venom was gone from his voice. Only exhaustion remained, and maybe the beginnings of respect. I learned from you, Emily replied with a half-smile. Only I use my boldness to build, not tear down, Mrs. Betty clapped. This girl's going places. Hank, will you mentor her? The old mechanic scratched his head, thoughtful. He looked at Emily, then at the tractor she'd brought back to life, then at Richard. If the boss allows it. It'd be an honor to teach someone with so much talent. Richard took a deep breath. He pulled out his wallet and counted out $50, handing it to Emily. Wednesdays and Saturdays, 2 afternoons only, 3 to 6. And your mom has to sign a permission slip. Deal, Emily said, pocketing the money. But on one condition. Now you're pushing it. I want you to stop saying a woman's place is in the kitchen, at least not in front of me. Richard swallowed hard. He looked around again. Everyone waited for his answer. Fine, he agreed at last. But you'll have to prove yourself every day. I won't go easy just because you're a girl. I don't want you to go easy, Emily shot back. Treat me like any other apprentice. No better, no worse. The deal was sealed. But little did Emily know this was just the beginning of a journey far harder than fixing a sabotaged tractor. That night at home, her parents' reaction was exactly as Richard had predicted. "You did what?" shouted Jennifer, Emily's mother, dropping the plate she was washing. "I got an internship at Uncle Richard's shop," Emily repeated calmly. "David," Jennifer called. "David, get in here now." Emily's father appeared in the kitchen, still wearing his bank manager uniform. "What's going on? Your daughter wants to work at your brother's shop with all those men dealing with grease and dirt." David looked at his daughter, then at his wife, then back at Emily. "Is this true?" "Yes, Dad. And before you say no, I proved today that I can do it. I got a tractor running when even Uncle Richard couldn't." "Richard challenged you?" David knew his brother well. "That idiot!" "David," Jennifer scolded. "Language. And don't change the subject. Our daughter is not working at an auto shop. End of discussion." "Mom, please." "No, Emily. You're 13. You should be focusing on school on—" "I am focusing on school," Emily interrupted. "I have the best grades in my class, but I also want to learn a trade. Grandpa always said honest work never shamed anyone." "Your grandfather was from a different time," argued Jennifer. "A time when women couldn't even vote," Emily shot back. "But he still taught me. Why do you think that was?" David sat at the table, rubbing his temples. "Emily has a point, Jennifer. Dad was always ahead of his time, and if she inherited his talent—" "I can't believe you're considering this." Jennifer was furious. "Our daughter in an auto shop full of rude men." "Hank isn't rude," Emily defended. "And he's going to be my mentor." Mrs. Betty approved. "Betty approved?" Jennifer paused. "Betty was her childhood friend." "She was there?" "Yes, and she said I'll go far." Jennifer sat down, temporarily defeated. She looked to her husband for support, but David seemed lost in thought. "You know," he finally said, "I always wanted to work with Dad at the shop. But Richard made it clear the business was his, as the eldest. I had to find another path." "And it worked out," Jennifer said. "You have a solid career at the bank." "Yes, but—" David looked at his own hands, soft and clean. "Sometimes I wonder how it would have been, if I'd insisted, if I'd fought for what I really wanted." "Dad," Emily felt a lump in her throat. She'd never seen her father so vulnerable. "I don't want our daughter to go through the same frustration," David continued. "If she has talent, if she has passion, who are we to deny that? We're her parents," Jennifer exploded. "It's our duty to protect her." "Protecting isn't controlling," David said gently. "Jennifer, honey, our daughter got a tractor running at 13. Isn't that extraordinary?" Jennifer crossed her arms, tears welling in her eyes. "I'm scared," she finally admitted. "Scared she'll get hurt. Scared of what people will say. Scared she'll face prejudice." Emily stood and hugged her mother. "I'll face prejudice no matter what, Mom. Whether I'm a mechanic, a doctor, or a homemaker. The world is cruel to women who dare. But you taught me to be strong." Jennifer held her daughter tight, tears now flowing freely. "When did you get so wise?" "I guess when I started paying attention to you instead of just complaining," Emily replied with a small smile. David joined the family hug. "So it's decided?" he asked. Jennifer took a deep breath. "2 conditions. First, your grades can't slip. 1 failing mark and the internship's over." "Deal," Emily said quickly. Second, at the first sign of disrespect or danger, you walk away. No arguments. Also deal. And I'll visit the shop regularly, Jennifer added. Very regularly. Richard will love that, David said sarcastically. Richard can deal with it, Jennifer fired back, surprising everyone. If my daughter's working there, I'll make sure she's treated with respect. That night, Emily barely slept. The day's adrenaline still coursed through her veins. She'd won the challenge, earned her uncle's reluctant respect, and secured her parents' even more reluctant approval. But deep down, she knew the real battle was just beginning. The following Wednesday, Emily arrived at the shop promptly at 3. She'd swapped her school uniform for old jeans and a t-shirt she didn't mind getting dirty. The shop was emptier than on Saturday. Only Hank, Richard, and 2 other mechanics were working. They all stopped when she walked in. "The apprentice is here," Richard announced without enthusiasm. "Hank, she's your problem now." Hank wiped his hands on a rag and approached Emily, ready to really learn. "Yes, sir. First, some rules. Safety first, always. Second, questions are welcome, but only when I'm not in the middle of something delicate. Third, what you learn here stays here. Some tricks are trade secrets. Understood? Good. Today we'll start with the basics, identifying tools and their functions." The next 3 hours flew by. Hank was a patient and meticulous teacher. He didn't just explain what each tool did, but why it was designed that way and how it had evolved over the years. "Your grandfather taught me a lot of this," he said, while showing different types of wrenches. "Frank was a walking encyclopedia of mechanical knowledge. Did you work with him long?" 15 years, the best of my career." When he retired and Richard took over, Hank paused, choosing his words carefully. Things changed. Emily understood the unspoken. Richard was a competent manager, but he lacked the passion and respect for the craft that Frank had. "Your grandfather would be proud to see you here," Hank continued. He always regretted none of his children truly followed in his footsteps. "Doesn't Uncle Richard like mechanics?" "Richard likes money," Hank replied, lowering his voice. "Nothing wrong with that. A business needs to turn a profit, but your grandfather, he loved the machines. Saw poetry in a well-tuned engine." Emily smiled. That was exactly how she felt. By late afternoon, as she was getting ready to leave, Richard called her into the office. "Sit down," he ordered. Emily obeyed, noticing the tension in her uncle's shoulders. "Your mother called 3 times today," he said, "wondering if you were okay, if you were being treated well, if you were learning. I'm sorry, I'll ask her to—" "No," Richard interrupted. "She's right to worry. You're a minor, you're my responsibility. If something happens to you here, nothing will happen. I'll follow all the safety rules." Richard studied her for a long moment. "Why is this so important to you? Why can't you just be a normal teenager?" "What's normal, Uncle? Staring at my phone all day, dreaming of being an influencer? That's not me." "But why mechanics? It's hard, dirty work. It's honest work," Emily replied. "And it's something I understand. Machines make sense to me in a way people sometimes don't." Richard sighed. "You remind me of someone." "Grandpa?" "No. Me before—" He paused. "Before I decided clean was better than dirty, that giving orders was better than doing the work." It was the first time Emily saw vulnerability in her uncle. For a moment, he wasn't the arrogant, macho Richard, but a man who'd made choices, and now questioned some of them. "It's not too late to get your hands dirty again," she said softly. Richard laughed, but it was a bitter sound. "Yes, it is. I've got an auto shop to run, bills to pay, employees depending on me. I can't afford to play mechanic." "It wouldn't be playing if you really—" "Enough," Richard cut in, his hard mask slipping back into place. "Go home and tell your mother you're fine and she doesn't need to call every hour." Emily stood but paused at the door. "Uncle Richard, thank you for the opportunity," he waved dismissively, already focused on the papers on his desk. In the weeks that followed, a routine settled in. Wednesdays and Saturdays, Emily immersed herself in the world of mechanics under Hank's patient guidance. She learned to change, oil, check fluids, and identify basic issues. But it wasn't all smooth sailing. Some customers were shocked to see a girl working in the shop. "What kind of nonsense is this?" Mr. Thompson complained one afternoon. "Now they're letting kids mess with my car." "She's learning," Hank defended. And she's only observing. She hasn't touched your vehicle. I don't care. A girl's place is at home. Emily felt her blood boil, but Hank held her back with a look. Some customers weren't worth arguing with. The other employees didn't make things easy either. Big Mike, the youngest mechanic, went out of his way to be difficult. "Hey, princess, go fetch us some coffee," he ordered one Saturday. "I'm not a waitress," Emily replied firmly. "Then what are you? Because a mechanic you're definitely not." "An apprentice," she said. "And an apprentice learns by working, not serving coffee." Big Mike laughed mockingly. "Next thing you know, she'll want to use the men's bathroom too. Don't need to. I use the office one, like any civilized person who knows how to flush." The dig didn't go unnoticed. Big Mike was notorious for leaving the bathroom in terrible condition. "You're getting real bold." "Learning from the best," Emily shot back, looking straight at him. Hank stepped in before things escalated. "Big Mike, Mrs. Johnson's Corolla is waiting. Emily, come with me, let's work on the Ford Focus's engine." But the challenges didn't stop. At home, despite her initial support, Jennifer remained tense. "You come home reeking of gasoline," she complained constantly. "It's the smell of honest work," Emily would reply, echoing her grandfather's words. "Your school friends asked why you never hang out with them anymore." "Because all they want to talk about is boys and makeup. I've got more important things to do." "Emily, you're 13, you should be having fun." "I am having fun, Mum, just my kind of fun." Jennifer sighed, worried. Her daughter was growing up too fast, skipping important stages of adolescence. At school, things weren't any easier. The news that Emily worked at an auto shop spread quickly. "Is it true you're around all those men?" asked Madison, the most popular girl in class. "I work with them, not around them," Emily corrected. "Gross, you must be covered in grease." "At least I'm not covered in artificiality like some people." Madison turned red with anger. "You're weird, Emily. No boy will ever want to date." "A girl who smells like oil." "Great. I'd take a well-tuned engine over a poorly tuned boy any day." The laughter that followed wasn't supportive. Emily was isolating herself more and more, but she didn't care, or at least pretended not. As you were a month into her internship, something changed. Richard started showing up more during training sessions, watching from a distance. "He's checking if you're messing up," Big Mike said spitefully, but Hank had another theory. "I think he's jealous," he whispered to Emily. "You've got the natural talent he never had." It was true. Emily learned at an impressive pace. What took regular apprentices months to grasp, she mastered in weeks. One Wednesday afternoon, an unexpected challenge arrived. Mrs. Robinson, one of the shop's oldest and most difficult customers, brought in her Civic with a mysterious issue. "I've taken it to 3 shops already," she complained. "No one can figure it out. The car just dies out of nowhere, then starts working again." Richard tried handling it personally, knowing the client's importance. "We'll do a full inspection, Mrs. Robinson. We'll find the problem." 2 hours later, nothing. The car ran perfectly in the shop. Richard was sweating, frustrated. "Must be some intermittent issue," he said. "It'll be hard to diagnose." Emily watched from afar. Something about the problem's description intrigued her. It reminded her of a story her grandfather had told. "Uncle Richard," she called timidly. "Can I make a suggestion?" "Not now, Emily. I'm busy with something." "Serious?" "But Grandpa once told me about a similar case." "I said not now," Richard snapped. Mrs. Robinson, however, had overheard. "Let the girl speak, Richard, since you can't figure it out." Richard clenched his teeth, humiliated. "Go on," he ordered dryly. "Grandpa said sometimes the problem isn't in the engine, but in the fuel tank. If the float is faulty, it can give the wrong reading, and the car stalls thinking it's out of gas." Hank slapped his own forehead. "Of course, why didn't I think of that?" Richard turned even redder. It was a simple, obvious solution for an experienced mechanic. How had he missed it? 15 minutes later, the diagnosis was confirmed. The fuel tank float had an intermittent fault. "That girl's got a future," said Mrs. Robinson, impressed. "Congratulations, Richard, for giving young talent a chance." Richard muttered something unintelligible. After the customer left, he turned to Emily. "Don't undermine me in front of clients again. I didn't mean to..." Intentions don't matter. You made me look incompetent. You did that yourself. The words slipped out before Emily could stop them. The shop fell dead silent. Everyone stopped what they were doing. Richard took a step toward his niece, his face a mask of fury. What did you say? Emily swallowed hard but kept her chin up. I said you made yourself look incompetent. I was just trying to help. You're 13. What do you know about respect and hierarchy? I know respect is earned, not forced. Grandpa taught me that too. Don't throw my father in my face. Why not? Are you ashamed to be compared to him? That was the last straw. Richard pointed to the door. Out, you're fired. Richard, don't... Hank tried to intervene. Shut it, Hank. My shop, my rules. She's out. Emily felt the tears burning her eyes, but refused to let them fall. She wouldn't give him the satisfaction. Fine, she said firmly. But you know I'm right. And you know Grandpa would be disappointed in what you've become. She walked out of the shop with her head high, but as soon as she turned the corner, the tears came. She had lost everything she'd fought for, thrown away because she couldn't hold her tongue. At home, her parents' reactions were mixed. I warned you this would happen, said Jennifer, torn between worry and relief. Richard's always been too proud. You challenged him in front of everyone? Asked David. He was being unfair. Emily defended herself. I helped fix the problem and he got mad. David sighed. Emily, in the working world, sometimes we have to swallow our pride, especially when we're new. So I should just take being mistreated because I'm young and a woman? That's not what I'm saying. Yes, it is. Emily was furious. Everyone always says to be patient, to wait, not to confront. How long? Until you have the power to change things, David replied calmly. You think I didn't face prejudice at the bank? A mechanic's son wanting to be a manager? But I waited, worked hard, earned my place. Now I can treat my team differently. Emily crossed her arms, unconvinced. What if I don't want to wait? What if I want respect now? Then you'll keep hitting walls and losing opportunities, said Jennifer, like you did today. The words stung because they were true. Emily went up to her room feeling defeated and alone. That night the phone rang. It was Hank. Emily, sorry to call late, but I needed to talk to you. Hi, Hank. I'm sorry about what happened today. You've got nothing to apologize for. Richard was wrong, we all know it. But he's the boss. Yeah, but... Hank paused. Look, I shouldn't tell you this, but after you left, there was a nasty argument. Big Mike backed Richard, of course, but Bob Wilson and George sided with you. They said Richard was unfair. Emily felt a small warmth in her chest. She wasn't completely alone. And there's more, Hank continued. Mrs. Robinson called. She wants you to keep working on her car. He said he trusts you more than Richard. But I got fired. From the official internship, yes. But nothing stops me from teaching you in my free time. I have a garage at home. Hank, would you really do that? Your grandfather was my mentor when no one believed in me. It's the least I can do for his granddaughter. Emily felt. The tears returned, but now they were of gratitude. Thank you so much. Saturday, 4 in the afternoon at my place. Mrs. Betty will bake a cake. The new routine began the following Saturday. Hank's garage was smaller than the shop, but well equipped. And without the pressure and hostility, Emily flourished even more. You got golden hands, Hank said as he watched her disassemble. Air carburetor. Just like your grandfather. Do you think he'd be proud? I'm sure he would. You know, he always regretted how Richard changed after taking over the business. What was he like before? Hank smiled nostalgically. Believe it or not, Richard was once passionate about mechanics. When he was young, he spent hours with your grandfather, learning every detail. He was good, really good. What happened? Life, Hank replied simply. Responsibilities, pressure to succeed financially. He chose to be a businessman instead of a craftsman. I don't judge. Everyone makes their choices, but he lost something along the way. Meanwhile, at the shop, things weren't going well. Emily's absence was more noticeable than Richard wanted to admit. Small diagnostics she would have done quickly now took longer. And some customers asked about her. Where's that Sharp girl? Asked Joe from the gas station. She had a real knack for this. It didn't work out, Richard replied curtly. But the worst came when Frank, Richard's father, and Emily's grandfather paid an unexpected visit to the shop. Dad? What are you doing here? Frank, at 75, still had the straight posture and piercing gaze that made him a legend among mechanics. Came to see how my business is doing, and to look for my granddaughter. Richard paled. She doesn't work here anymore. I know, Frank said calmly. Hank told me everything. The silence in the shop was oppressive. All the employees suddenly found intense interest in their work. Dad, she disrespected me in front of... She told the truth, Frank cut in. You've become what I always criticized. A man who values ego over skill. That's not fair, and isn't it? You fired the most talented person to come through here in years because she bruised your pride. What do you call that? Richard had no answer. Frank walked through the shop, observing everything with a critical eye. It's all very clean, he remarked. Too organized. Where's the soul? Dad, organization is important for... I know what's important, Frank interrupted. I worked 40 years in this place, built this shop from nothing, and you're killing its spirit. I'm making the business thrive. At what cost? Hank told me you don't even get your hands dirty anymore. When was the last time you felt the satisfaction of bringing a dead engine back to life? Richard looked away. He couldn't remember. Your niece has the gift, Frank continued. The same gift you had and threw away. And instead of nurturing that talent, you drove it out of jealousy. It's not jealousy. No, then explain why a 13-year-old girl threatens you so much. The question hung in the air. Richard had no answer that wouldn't shame him further. I'm going to visit Emily now, Frank announced. And Richard, think hard about what you've become. There's still time to change. After his father left, Richard locked himself in the office. Frank's words echoed in his mind. When had he become this bitter, insecure man? Meanwhile, at Hank's house, Emily was focused on working on a motorcycle engine when Frank arrived. Grandpa! She ran to hug him, smearing grease on his shirt. Sorry, I never apologize for the marks of honest work, he said, returning the hug. Let me see your hands. Emily extended her hands, now calloused with a few healed cuts. The hands of a real mechanic, Frank approved. Is Hank taking good care of you? The best he can, Hank confirmed. She learns fast, Frank. Faster than any apprentice I've ever had. I know, the old man smiled. She takes after me. They spent the afternoon together, Frank sharing stories from the old days, giving tips, correcting small posture habits Emily had developed. The secret, he said, isn't strength, it's understanding. The machine tells you what's wrong, you just have to learn its language. That's how I felt with the tractor, Emily said. It was like it was telling me where it hurt. Exactly. Richard never understood that. To him, machines are just metal and profit. To us, they're almost alive. As Frank was leaving, he held his granddaughter's hands. Don't give up, he said. The road won't be easy. They'll underestimate you, disrespect you, try to discourage you, but you have something they don't. What? Real passion. And that, my girl, is worth more than all the money in the world. In the weeks that followed, the routine continued. Emily went to school during the week, keeping her grades up, and spent weekends at Hank's garage. But news travels fast in a small town. Soon people started coming to Hank for small jobs, knowing Emily would be there. Can the girl take a look at my bike? Asked old Sam. Heard she's got a good touch. She's still learning, Hank cautioned. Better a talented apprentice than a clueless pro, the customer replied. Emily diagnosed the problem in minutes, a loose spark plug wire. Simple, but something another mechanic had missed. Her reputation grew, and with it, the problems. 1. Saturday afternoon, Big Mike showed up at Hank's garage. So this is where the little princess is hiding, he said dismissively. What do you want, Big Mike? Hank wasn't in the mood for games. Came to get the impact wrench you borrowed. It's over there, Hank pointed. Take it and leave. But Big Mike wasn't in a hurry. He circled the garage, watching Emily work. You know, Richard's been stressed, he remarked casually. The shop's not making what it used to. Some customers have disappeared. Emily kept working, pretending not to hear. Word is they're coming here instead, Big Mike continued, to a backyard garage with some brat who doesn't even have a work permit. That's enough, Hank cut in. Take your tool and go. Just making conversation, Big Mike smirked. But the princess should know Richard isn't happy, and when he's not happy, What's he gonna do? Emily finally spoke up. Fire me again? There are other ways to make life hard for someone, Big Mike said, especially someone who depends on others' goodwill to work. The veiled threat hung in the air. After Big Mike left, Hank was visibly worried. Maybe we should take a break, he suggested. Let things cool down. No, Emily said firmly. If I stop now, they win. I won't give them that satisfaction. Emily, Richard has influence. If he wants to make trouble, let him try. I'm not doing anything illegal. But the threats weren't empty. On Monday, Jennifer got a call at work. Mrs. Jennifer, this is Child Welfare Services. Jennifer's heart froze. What's wrong? Is my daughter okay? We've received an anonymous complaint about a minor working in unsuitable conditions. We need to talk. The meeting was tense. Jennifer had to explain the whole situation, that Emily wasn't being exploited, that she kept her grades up, that she had her parents' permission. We understand, the caseworker said, but we need to verify it in person. We'll visit the garage where it's parked. Jennifer left the meeting furious. She knew exactly who had made the complaint. At home, the argument was heated. I told you this would cause trouble, Jennifer shouted. Now we've got Child Welfare Services on our backs. Mom, I didn't do anything wrong. It doesn't matter. The point is, Richard is willing to use dirty tricks to hurt you. Is it worth it? Emily hesitated for the first time. She hadn't expected her uncle to stoop so low. It is, she finally said. If I give up every time someone tries to bring me down, I'll never get anywhere. David, who had stayed quiet until then, finally spoke. Jennifer, I think we need to talk to my brother. Talk? He's gone too far. Exactly. And someone needs to remind him of that. The next day, David went to the auto shop. It had been years since he'd visited his brother at work. David? Richard looked surprised. What are you doing here? I came to have a brother-to-brother talk, in private. In the office, David got straight to the point. Child Welfare Services, Richard, seriously? Richard had the decency to look uncomfortable. I don't know what you're talking about. Don't insult my intelligence. I know it was you or someone you sent. And what if it was? I'm protecting a minor from what? From learning an honest trade? From developing a natural talent? Or from making you feel inadequate? Richard turned red. She humiliated me in my own shop. She's 13, you're 42. Who's supposed to be the adult here? The brothers locked eyes. Years of unspoken resentment hung between them. You were always Dad's favorite, Richard said bitterly, even though you didn't want the business. And you always had the business, David shot back. But it was never enough, was it? You needed the approval too. Easy for you to say when you left, went to college, became a bank manager. You think it was easy. You think I wanted to leave? I loved the shop as much as you did. But you made it clear there wasn't room for both of us. I was the oldest. And I accepted it. I left, built my own life, never complained, never fought you. And now my daughter, your niece, just wants a chance to learn. And you pull this. Richard looked away. She reminds me of how I used to be before you chose to be a businessman instead of a mechanic. Yeah, it wasn't really a choice. Dad got sick, someone had to handle the business side. And when he got better, I was already stuck. David softened his tone. Richard, it's not too late to change. You can be both. I can't. I have responsibilities. Responsibilities you created yourself. The shop runs fine. You've got good employees. Why not get your hands dirty again? Because I'm afraid I'll find out I've lost my touch, that I'm not good at it anymore. The vulnerability in Richard's voice caught David off guard. So you're punishing Emily for having the courage you don't. Richard sank into his chair. When she got that tractor running, it felt like a slap in the face, a 13-year-old girl doing what I couldn't. She had a good teacher, Dad, the same one who taught you. But I forgot everything. I doubt it. Some things you never forget, like riding a bike or tuning an engine. Richard let out a humorless laugh. It's been 15 years since I held a real wrench. Then maybe it's time, and maybe you could learn a thing or two from your niece too. Learn from a kid. Why not? Pride. The same pride that's ruining your relationship with family and driving good customers away. Richard was silent for a long moment. What do you want me to do? First, call Child Welfare Services and withdraw the complaint. Second, apologize to Emily. Third, I don't know, Richard. Try to remember why you loved this before money took over. It's not just about the money. No? Then what is it about? Richard didn't answer. There was no answer that wouldn't sound pathetic, even to his own ears. That afternoon, Child Welfare Services called Jennifer. The complaint was withdrawn, the counselor informed. Seems it was a misunderstanding. Jennifer breathed a sigh of relief. When David got home, she hugged him. What did you say to him? The truth. That he's becoming someone our father would be ashamed to call his son. Harsh, but necessary. Richard lost his way. Maybe there's still time for him to find it again. Emily, listening from the stairs, felt a mix of emotions. Anger at what her uncle had done, but also pity. For the first time, she realized Richard wasn't just a villain, but someone who had lost something precious and didn't know how to get it back. The following Saturday, she was working in Hank's garage when a shadow covered the entrance. It was Richard. Can I come in? Hank looked at Emily, who gave a slight nod. Richard stepped in slowly, looking around. His eyes landed on the tools, the parts, the disassembled engine on the workbench. Been a while since I've seen an engine this torn apart, he remarked. It's from a Honda Shadow 99, Emily said cautiously. Connecting rod issue. Richard stepped closer. Mind if I? Emily moved aside, giving him space. Richard examined the parts, his fingers touching the metal with something close to reverence. The pin's oval, he diagnosed. Needs resurfacing or replacing. That's what I thought, Emily agreed. An uncomfortable silence followed. Emily, Richard cleared his throat. I came to apologize for what I did. It was low and cowardly. Emily stayed quiet, waiting. You reminded me of something I'd rather forget, he continued. Of who I was. Of who I wanted to be. And instead of thanking you for that, I acted like a fool. You did, Emily agreed. Richard almost smiled. You don't make it easy, do you? Learned from you not to show weakness. Touché. Richard sighed. Look, I don't expect you to forgive me, but I'd like to try starting over, if you'll let me. Starting over how? I don't know. Maybe you could come back to the auto shop, officially, with fair pay and everything. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us newcomers out. Now, back to it. Emily considered the offer, with some conditions. What? First, I work with Hank, not you. Second, respect from everyone. If someone disrespects me, you handle it. Third? You get your hands dirty again, at least once a week. Richard blinked, surprised. Why? Because my grandfather always said a boss who can't tell you the work can't lead, and because I think you miss it. Richard looked at his hands. Clean, soft, callus-free. Executive hands. It's been so long, like riding a bike, Emily said, repeating her father's words. You never really forget. What if I'm not good at it anymore? Then you'll learn again, with me and Hank, no shame in that. Richard laughed, a genuine sound this time. A 13-year-old girl teaching me humility. Your grandfather must be laughing in heaven. Probably, Emily agreed with a small smile. So, do we have a deal? With my conditions. With your conditions, they shook hands. Emily's rough and calloused, Richard's soft and hesitant. Monday, Richard asked. Wednesday, Emily corrected. I have a math test on Tuesday. Priorities straight, Richard approved. Your mum must be proud. She's more relieved child welfare isn't on our backs anymore. Richard had the decency to blush. About that, you've apologized, let's leave it behind, but if you try anything like that again, I won't, I promise. After Richard left, Hank whistled. I can't believe what I just saw. Neither can I, admitted Emily. Do you think he'll follow through? Only time will tell. But it was a start. By Monday, the news had spread through the auto shop. Emily would be coming back with Richard's full support. "This isn't going to work," grumbled Big Mike. "Then maybe you'd prefer to find another job," said Richard coldly. "Because Emily stays, and anyone who has a problem with that, the door is open." No one spoke up. On Wednesday, Emily arrived to find something unexpected. A brand new workbench with new tools and a sign, "Frank Johnson Learning Space." "I thought it was only fair to honor my father," said Richard, "and to create a proper space for the new generation to learn." Emily felt her eyes well up. "Thank you, Uncle." "Don't thank me yet. You'll have to teach me how to replace this connecting rod. It's been so long I don't even remember how." The following weeks were an adjustment. Richard kept his word, dedicating a few hours each week to relearn the trade. It was strange at first, the boss getting dirty, making mistakes, asking for help. "It's too tight," said Emily as she watched him tighten a bolt. "I know what I'm doing," Richard snapped automatically. The bolt stripped 2 turns later, proving otherwise. "Okay, maybe I don't," he admitted. The change wasn't easy or immediate. Richard still had moments of arrogance, still resisted admitting faults. But little by little, something shifted. "Funity," he said one day, his hands covered in grease. "I'd forgotten how satisfying this is." "What?" "Fixing something with your own hands, seeing something broken come back to life." "Is it better than profit?" teased Emily. "Different," Richard replied thoughtfully. "Profit pays the bills. This feeds the soul." The relationship between uncle and niece evolved from mutual tolerance to something close to respect. Richard discovered that learning from Emily didn't undermine his authority. If anything, the crew respected him more. "The boss is different now," remarked Bob Wilson. "More human." "It's the kid's influence," said George. She softened his stone heart. Big Mike was the only one who didn't adjust. After several warnings for disrespecting Emily, he finally quit. "I won't work somewhere a kid bosses around adults," he said on his way out. "Good," Richard replied. "We need people who value skill, not age, but not everything." Was smooth sailing. At school, Emily still faced isolation. Her old friends thought she was too strange. "You smell like oil," Madison said one day, theatrically pinching her nose. "Better than reeking of shallowness," Emily shot back. "You'll die alone, you know. No man wants a woman who acts like a mechanic." "Then I'll build my own happiness, with my own hands." Still, the words stung more than Emily let. On at night in her room, she sometimes wondered if she'd chosen the right path. Would it be easier to be like the others, to like girly things? Jennifer noticed her daughter's melancholy. "What's wrong, sweetheart?" "Nothing, Mom." Emily talked to me. So Emily did. About the isolation, the teasing, the doubt. Jennifer hugged her. "You know what your grandmother told me when I chose to marry your father instead of taking that job in Chicago." "What?" "That the easy path rarely leads where we want to go. That the best choices are usually the hardest." "And do you regret it?" "I wonder every day how it might have been. But when I look at you, your dad, our life, no, I don't regret it. I chose love over career. You're choosing passion over popularity. Both are valid. But it hurts to be alone. You're not alone. You have us. You have Hank. Even your uncle now. And as for friends, the real ones come when you're true to yourself." Like a prophecy, the next week brought a change. Amy, a quiet girl in class, approached Emily during recess. Is it true you fix motorcycles?" "I'm learning. Why?" "My brother has a bike that's been sitting for months. He's taken it to 2 shops and nothing." "Do you think—" "I can take a look," offered Emily. On Saturday, Amy showed up at the shop with her brother and the bike. While Emily inspected the vehicle, Amy watched in fascination. "Do you really understand all this?" "A little. I'm still learning." "That's amazing. I barely know how to change a bike tire." "I can teach you if you'd like." Amy's eyes lit up. "Really?" And just like that, Emily made her first real friend. Amy didn't mind the smell of oil or the calloused hands. In fact, she admired Emily's independence and skill. "You're like a superhero," Amy said one day. "Only instead of superpowers, you have super mechanical knowledge," Emily laughed. I think I prefer it this way. Superpowers you're born with, knowledge you earn. Time passed. Emily grew, and so did her reputation. By 16, she was known as the mechanic girl all over the area. Customers came from neighboring towns to have their vehicles checked by her. "We need to talk about your future," Richard said one day. "What about it?" "You'll be 18 in 2 years. Do you plan to stay an assistant forever?" "I don't know. I've never thought much beyond today." "Well, you should. You have the talent to be more than a mechanic. You could be an engineer, a designer, or I could be the best mechanic in the region," Emily interrupted. "That too. But don't limit yourself. Your grandfather always regretted not studying more." It was true. Frank, for all his skill, always felt the lack of formal education. "I'll think about it," Emily promised. The conversation stayed on her mind. For the first time, she began considering a future beyond the shop. It was Jennifer who brought a solution. "There's a mechatronics technical course at the Technical Community College. It combines mechanics with electronics and automation." Mechatronics? Cars are becoming more and more electronic. Soon, mechanics who don't understand computers will be obsolete. Emily researched the course. It was fascinating. The blend of traditional and modern, mechanical and digital. "I want to do it," she announced at dinner. David smiled. "I knew you'd be interested. I already spoke to the director. They were impressed with your informal resume." "Resume?" "Hank and Richard wrote recommendation letters. They listed all your tough diagnoses, satisfied customers, your dedication." Emily felt her heart warm. Having the support of both mentors meant so much. "But it's full time," she worried. "What about the shop?" "Weekends and holidays," Richard said when she voiced her concern. "Education comes first. Your grandfather would be proud." And Frank was. When Emily told him about the course, her grandfather's eyes sparkled. Mechatronics, what a beautiful word. In my day, it was all by ear and intuition. "It still will be, Grandpa, just with more tools." That's how it should be. Take the best of the old and the new. The course was challenging. Emily was one of the few women in the class and the only one with real hands-on experience. That caused some initial awkwardness. "What do you mean you already work at a shop?" a classmate asked. "Since I was 13, no way." Emily just smiled. She didn't need to prove anything with words. The practical lessons would speak for her, and they did. When the professor asked them to diagnose an engine problem, Emily figured it out in minutes while others took an hour. "Miss Johnson, where did you learn that technique?" the professor asked, impressed. "My grandfather taught me to listen to the engine. Every noise tells a story." An old but effective method. Class, pay attention. You can learn a lot from your classmate. Some resented it, others grew curious. Nathan, a shy guy who sat in the back, was the first to ask for help. "Can you teach me that engine listening thing?" "Sure. But it takes patience and a trained..." They began studying together. Nathan had a knack for electronics, Emily for mechanics. They complemented each other. "We make a good team," he remarked one day. "We really do," Emily agreed, noticing for the first time how green his eyes were. But there were challenges. Professor Reynolds, in charge of the electrical portion, clearly had issues with women in the course. "Miss Johnson, perhaps it's best to leave the delicate components to your classmates," he said when she picked up a circuit board. "Why?" "My hands are smaller, more precise for delicate work." "But the knowledge..." "Let her try, Professor," Nathan interjected. "Emily is the best in the class at hands-on work." The professor reluctantly allowed it. Emily not only completed a task, but improved the original circuit. "I learned basic electronics from my uncle," she explained. "Modern cars need this." The professor said nothing, but his expression spoke volumes. The inevitable confrontation came during a practical test. The challenge was to diagnose and fix a faulty electronic fuel injection system. Professor Reynolds smirked as he handed the equipment to Emily. "Let's see if your neighborhood auto shop experience helps with cutting-edge technology." Emily examined the system. Something was off, not just with the equipment, but with the situation. The professor's smile was too confident. She carefully disassembled it, searching for the flaw. And she found it. Not one, but 3 different problems clearly planted on purpose. "Professor," she called calmly, "are you sure this is the correct equipment? Is there a problem, miss?" "Yes, 3 actually, but one of them couldn't happen naturally. Someone had to sabotage it deliberately." The room fell silent. Everyone understood the implication. "Are you accusing me of something?" The professor turned red. "I'm saying this equipment was tampered with. You can draw your own conclusions." "How dare you?" "Professor Reynolds," interrupted the course coordinator, who had come in to observe the tests. "May I see the equipment?" The analysis confirmed it. The equipment had been altered to make it impossible to fix in the given time. "Emily correctly identified the alterations," the coordinator announced, "and more importantly, she had the courage to speak up when something wasn't right. That's just as important as technical knowledge." Professor Reynolds was removed. It turned out this wasn't the first time he'd tried to undermine female students. "How did you know?" Nathan asked afterward. "Remember my uncle trying to sabotage me with the tractor? I recognize the pattern. Insecure men act predictably." "Not all men." "No, not all," Emily smiled at him. "Some are real partners." The incident made her something of a hero in the course. Girls from other semesters came to talk, asking for advice. "How do you handle it?" a freshman asked. "It's so hard to be taken seriously." "By being better than them," Emily replied simply, "and never, ever giving up." Meanwhile, at the auto shop, things were thriving. Richard had found a balance between management and hands-on work. The shop had gained a reputation for being not just skilled, but also inclusive. "We have 3 resumes from girls wanting internships," Richard announced in a meeting. "Great," said Hank. Emily opened doors. "It'd be unfair to close them now." "I agree, but we need to be prepared. Not every customer will take it well." "Those who don't can find another shop," Emily, who was present, said. "Competence has no gender." "Spoken like a future mechatronics engineer," Richard teased. "Technician," Emily corrected. "I don't need a ring on my finger to prove I know my work." But life had other plans. In their final year, a recruiter from a major automaker visited the school. "We're looking for talent for our trainee program," he announced. "The top students will have a chance to work on developing new vehicles." Emily wasn't initially interested. Her place was at the auto shop with her family, her community, but the recruiter sought her out personally. "Miss Johnson, I've seen your record. It's impressive. Would you consider an opportunity with us?" "Thank you, but I don't plan on leaving here. I understand the local loyalty, but think of the bigger impact. You could influence vehicle designs to make them easier to maintain, help mechanics across the country." The idea stuck in her mind. Help mechanics across the country. At home, the discussion was heated. "It's an incredible opportunity," said David. "But it's in Chicago," worried Jennifer. "So far away." "I'm not going," said Emily. "My place is here." "Are you sure?" asked David. "I don't want you making decisions out of fear or comfort." "It's not fear, it's a choice. I choose to stay where I can make a real difference, not a theoretical one." Frank, now 80 but still sharp, had the final word. "My dear, I'm proud you want to stay, but I'd be just as proud if you wanted to fly. What matters is choosing with your heart, not with fear." "I'm choosing with my heart, Grandpa." "Then it's the right choice." The graduation was emotional. Emily was the class speaker, chosen unanimously by her peers. "When I first got here, many doubted I belonged in this place," her speech began. "A girl, no less, with only experience from a neighborhood auto shop. But I learned that belonging isn't about where you come from. It's about where you're going. And more importantly, it's about who you bring along." She looked into the audience, seeing her family, Hank, Richard, even some customers who came to celebrate. "Each of us has the power to open doors. I was lucky to have people who opened doors for me, even when it seemed impossible. Now it's our turn. Open doors, challenge prejudices. And remember, the best tool we have isn't in the toolbox, it's in our minds and hearts." The auditorium erupted in applause. Jennifer wept openly. David hid his tears. Richard whistled loudly. After the ceremony, Nathan approached her. "Inspiring speech." "Thank you. I spoke from the heart." Emily, I need to tell you something. What? I got an offer from that automaker. The same one that approached you. Emily felt a tightness in her chest. And are you going to accept? It depends. On what? On you. Nathan took a deep breath. Emily, all these years you've become more than a classmate to me. You're special to me. If you stay, I stay. If you want to go, we'll go together. But I don't want to move forward without you. Emily stared at him, surprised. There had always been something between them, but never spoken aloud. Nathan, I don't know what to say. Say we'll figure it out together, whether here or anywhere. I chose to stay. Then I'm staying too. We can revolutionize local mechanics together. You'd give up a big opportunity for me? It's not giving up, it's choosing. I choose you. I choose us. Emily felt tears in her eyes. They kissed right there, in the middle of the parking lot, to the cheers of some watching classmates. Finally, someone shouted, about time. The following months brought changes. Emily took on more responsibilities at the auto shop, implementing modern techniques she'd learned in school. Nathan was hired as a vehicle electronics specialist. The shop is unrecognizable, Frank remarked during a visit. Modern, but without losing its soul. That was the goal, Grandpa, said Emily. Honor the past while building the future. Richard, now balancing administration with hands-on work, had become a truly respected leader. You know, he said, one day I owe you a lot. Why? For reminding me who I was, who I could be. I was lost in the character I'd created. We all get lost sometimes. What matters is accepting help to find our way back. You sound like your grandfather. The highest praise I could get. The auto shop became a regional benchmark for modern and inclusive mechanics. The 3 female interns became full-fledged mechanics inspiring others. It's a movement, Jennifer said proudly. You started a movement, sweetheart. I didn't start anything, I just showed it was possible. On a special Saturday, exactly 5 years after that first challenge with the tractor, the family gathered at the shop for a celebration. To the future, toasted Richard. To the past that brought us here, added Frank. And to the present, said Emily, looking around, where past and future meet. The old John Deere tractor was there, now restored and functional, a reminder of where it all began. Want to take it for a spin? Asked Richard. Only if you come with me, replied Emily. Uncle and niece climbed onto the tractor. Richard let Emily drive, watching proudly as she skillfully maneuvered the machine. You know, he said, I always wondered what it would be like to have a son to pass the business to. And I discovered nieces can be even better. You didn't just save the business, you saved me. We saved each other, Emily corrected. That's what family does. The sun set over Springfield, painting the sky orange and red. In the shop, 3 generations of mechanics celebrated not just professional achievements, but personal victories. Jennifer watched her daughter with pride, mixed with nostalgia. She grew up too fast, she told David. She grew up strong, he replied, like her mother. You know what's most amazing? She could be anywhere doing anything, but she chose to stay. Because this is where she makes a real difference. Our daughter understands something many spend a lifetime learning. Success isn't about where you end up, but how many people you bring along. Nathan approached Emily as she stepped off the tractor. What are you thinking about? How much has changed and how some important things have stayed the same? Like what? Like family, like passion for what we do, like love. He kissed her softly. There's something I need to ask you. What? Nathan knelt right there on the shop's oil-stained floor. Emily Johnson, the most talented mechanic and most incredible woman I know. Will you marry this humble electronics technician? Silence fell. Everyone in the shop stopped to watch. Emily looked around, at the tractor that started it all, at Hank, her mentor and friend, at Richard, who learned to change, at her parents, her pillars of support, at Frank, her constant inspiration. I will, she said finally, but on one condition. What? The wedding has to be here at the shop, where our story began. I wouldn't have it any other way. The applause and celebrations lasted late into the night. Frank, emotional, hugged his granddaughter. Your grandmother would be so proud. You fulfilled a dream we didn't even know we had. What dream, Grandpa? To see a woman in our family not just accepted in the world of mechanics, but respected, a leader, an inspiration. You made it possible when you believed in me first. I just saw what was already there. The credit is all yours. The wedding, 6 months later, was indeed held at the shop. Transformed with lights and flowers but still recognizable, Emily insisted on having decorative grease stains on the tables. To remember where we came from, she explained. Richard was the best man, emotional and proud. Who would have thought, he whispered during the ceremony. The girl I challenged became the woman who taught me. Frank's speech as family patriarch was the most moving moment. I've spent my whole life around machines, thought I knew how to fix things, but it was my granddaughter who taught me sometimes it's not the machines that need repair, it's people. Mindsets, prejudices. Emily didn't just fix tractors and cars, she fixed our family. She fixed our vision of what's possible. And for that, my dear granddaughter, I'll be forever grateful. There wasn't a dry eye in the auto shop. Life went on. Emily and Nathan worked side by side, constantly modernizing the shop. They had 2 children, a boy and a girl, both raised among tools and affection. Mom, can I help? Asked 5-year-old Grace, watching her mother work. Of course, sweetheart. But first, what's rule number 1? Safety first. Good girl, now take a look at this wrench. Richard, watching from a distance, smiled. The cycle continued. Learning early, he remarked to Hank. As it should be. Knowledge has no minimum age. Or gender, Richard added. Took me a while to learn that. But you did. That's what matters. Frank, now in his 80s, still visited weekly, frail in body but sharp in mind. Grace has the gift, he told Emily. I see it in her eyes, like you saw in mine. Exactly, that spark when a machine comes to life. You can't teach that, it's born in you. What about Tyler? Tyler has a different spark, more on the administrative side, like his father. It was true. Tyler, 3 years older, preferred numbers to tools, and that was okay. Everyone has their own talent, Emily said. What matters is passion. On an ordinary Saturday afternoon, Emily was working on a complex engine when Grace approached. Mom, why do some people say this is a man's job? Emily paused, choosing her words. Because for a long time, only men were allowed to do it. Not because women couldn't, but because they weren't given the chance. Why? Fear, maybe, or silly tradition. But you know what your great-grandmother used to say? What? That tradition is just pressure from dead people, that every generation should carve its own path. So I can be a mechanic? You can be whatever your heart tells you. Mechanic, doctor, teacher, astronaut. A mechanic astronaut, Grace exclaimed. Fixing spaceships, Emily laughed. Why not? Your generation will go farther than mine. Richard walked over. Mind if I step in? Emily moved aside, letting great-uncle and great-niece work together. The scene moved her. The same man who once said a woman's place was in the kitchen now patiently taught a little girl. Real change, Nathan murmured, hugging his wife. You brought real change. We did, she corrected. All of us. Time passed relentlessly. Frank passed peacefully in his sleep one winter night at 92. He'd worked in the shop until 2 weeks before, stubborn to the end. The funeral brought mechanics from across the region. The shop closed in mourning, but also in celebration of a life well lived. He lived to see his dream come true, Richard said in his eulogy, to see this shop not just survive, but thrive. To see his granddaughter carry the legacy forward. To see great-grandchildren learning the trade. How many get that blessing? Emily, now 33, cried as she held her children. Was great-grandpa happy? Tyler asked. Very happy, Emily replied. He did what he loved till the end. And he saw the love continue. Life moved on as it always does. The shop, now Johnson & Sons Auto Shop, tradition and innovation, was a national benchmark for inclusive modern mechanics. "We've been invited to speak in Chicago," Nathan announced at a meeting. "About what?" Richard asked. "Creating inclusive workplaces in the automotive industry." "You should go, Emily," Richard said. "It's your story." "Our story," she corrected. "And yes, I'll go, but I want you to come with me, Uncle. Your transformation is a big part of it." Richard was moved. It'd be an honor. The talk was fair success. Emily spoke about challenges, prejudice, and overcoming. Richard spoke on the importance of leaders open to change. "The hardest question a leader can ask themselves," Richard told the audience, "is, where am I going wrong? But it's the most important. I got a lot wrong. Luckily, I had someone brave enough to show me." Thunderous applause followed. Afterward, a young woman approached Emily. "Ma'am, I want to be like you, but my dad won't let me. Says it's not for women." "How old are you?" 15. "I was 13 when I started. To know the secret?" "What?" "Persistence with smarts. Don't always fight head-on. Sometimes go around. Show results. Prove your worth. And most of all, don't give up." "But it's so hard." "Yeah, but the best things usually are. Worth it?" The girl nodded vigorously. "Then fight. And remember, you're not alone. Every one of us who makes it paves the way for the next." Back in Springfield, routine resumed. Grace, now 10, already showed impressive skill. Tyler, at 13, preferred the administrative side, but respected hands-on work. "We make a good team," he told his sister. "You fix, I price." "Perfect team," Grace agreed. Jennifer and David, now doting grandparents, watched proudly. "Our daughter built an empire," David said. "Not an empire," Jennifer corrected. "A family, extended, sure, but family." It was true. The shop now employed 15 people, half of them women. Emily's former trainees now mentored others. "It's a virtuous cycle," observed Hank, now retired but still a regular visitor. Frank would have been moved. Richard, at 62, still worked actively. "Retire for what?" he'd say. "This is my life." One special day, Emily received a letter, an invitation for the State Social Entrepreneur of the Year award. "Will you accept?" Nathan asked. "Is it important?" "Not for you, but think of the girls who'll see it, the inspiration." Emily accepted. The ceremony was emotional, her speech even more. "This award isn't mine," she began. "It belongs to everyone who dared to change. To my Uncle Richard, who proved it's never too late to grow. To Hank, who taught me when no one else would. To my parents, who supported when it'd have been easier to forbid. To my grandfather, who saw potential where others saw impossibility. To my husband, who chose to stay and build rather than leave. To my kids, who daily remind me why we fight. To every woman who walked into an auto shop and said, 'I can. This award is ours.'" Standing ovation. Jennifer wept. David filmed. Richard whistled. Grace and Tyler shouted, "That's our mom." The ride home was reflective. "Grandpa would be proud," Emily said, gazing at the trophy. "He is," Richard said firmly. "Wherever he is, he's watching and smiling." That night, Emily dreamed of Frank. He was in the shop, hands greasy, smiling. "Keep going, granddaughter. The work never ends, but neither does the love." She woke in tears, good tears. Life flowed on. Challenges came, difficult customers, competition, market shifts, but the solid foundation built on love, respect, and skill held firm. "Know what I've learned?" Emily told Nathan one quiet evening. "What?" "That changing the world doesn't have to be grand. It can be one person at a time, one prejudice at a time, one mind at a time." "And you've changed many minds." "We have. Together." "Together," he agreed, kissing her. Grace entered the room. "Mom, Dad, can I ask something?" "Of course, sweetheart." "Why does Uncle Richard sometimes cry when he sees me working?" Emily smiled. "Because you remind him second chances exist, that people can change, that love's stronger than prejudice." "I don't get it." "You will. When you have your own story of overcoming. Will I? Everyone does. The question is what we do with it. Grace nodded thoughtfully and left. She'll go far, Nathan said. Farther than us, Emily agreed. Each generation should. And so, in an auto shop in Springfield, 3 generations of mechanics, men and women, young and old, kept writing a story of change. No global or grand change. Real, tangible change, one life at a time. The John Deere tractor, now a museum piece at the entrance of the auto shop, stood as a silent witness. A sign read, "Where it all began, a challenge, a test, a change." Visitors always asked about the story, and there was always someone happy to tell it. About the girl who dared, the uncle who learned, the grandfather who believed, the family who supported, the community that changed. Is this a true story? They'd sometimes ask. As true as grease on your hands and love in your heart? Was the standard reply. And somewhere Frank smiled. His legacy wasn't just mechanical, it was human. It was love translated into action, prejudice turned into support, the impossible made routine. At Johnson & Sons Auto Shop, the work continued. Engines being fixed, lives being built, prejudices being dismantled like faulty parts. And every Wednesday at 3 in the afternoon, Emily stopped what she was doing and looked at the clock. The same time when, 20 years earlier, a determined girl walked into an auto shop for the first time as an apprentice. "Why do you always stop at this time?" a new intern asked. "To remember," Emily replied, "us where I came from, and to be grateful for where I've arrived." "Did you get where you wanted?" Emily looked around, her daughter adjusting a carburetor, her son checking invoices, her husband teaching electronics, her uncle guiding newcomers, women and men working as equals. "Not where I wanted," she finally said, "where I needed to be. Sometimes destiny knows better than we do." The sun set once more over Springfield. In the auto shop, the work continued, as it always would. Because some things, love, family, purpose, don't keep business hours, and somewhere, a girl in some town faced doubts about her dreams. Maybe she'd hear about Emily. Maybe not. But the path was a little clearer. The impossible a little more possible. That's how real change happened, not with a bang. With persistence. One person at a time. One day at a time. One dream at a time. End of story. And you, dear listener, what did you think? Emily chose to stay instead of fly, to build locally instead of globally. Would you do the same? Leave your thoughts in the comments and tell us where you're tuning in from. If this story touched your heart, give it a like and subscribe for more tales of perseverance and love.